Hello, David.
Hello.
Welcome, everyone. Ooh, hello to all non-watching people, probably. But for those of you that are here or are watching on the replay, welcome to week 5 of FlutterFlow Live. I'm joined once again by my co-founder and co-host, David, because Dimitar is apparently taking a lot of holidays this summer, and David's pretty awesome. So, um, who will be my official developer expert here as I fumble around. Um, this week, we are going to be talking, first and foremost, we're going to be going through some of the uh, latest updates that came through in FlutterFlow. It was kind of a big one. I think it was so big they couldn't even fit everything really in the announcement posts, and there was a lot of actually really cool stuff they seemed to not even mention. So we'll talk about some of that stuff and go through it. And then I think the majority of this time we are going to, it's related to that update, we're actually going to pick up where we left off last week, where, for those of you who are with us, where we kind of tried and failed to use local state inside of custom widgets to actually pump out a value back up the widget tree. So that means that something is happening inside of a custom widget or actually a component as well. And what we're like a slider or choice chips or anything like that. And obviously what you want to have happen is for your page, actually your app to change for whether that's a Firestore query, the visibility of something, or even just the text widget based on what's happening inside. Up until now, that has never been possible. And we thought it might be last week. It was not. But the exciting thing is that this week it is. Because of some of the cool new updates. So I am going to go ahead and share my screen to start off with, and let's run through. I'm going to cheat and go to the community here, and we are going to, because I don't, or do you have that newsletter, David, actually? Do you have the newsletter? You sent me something from it, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. Should
It's
be my
okay.
email.
I got it right here, actually. So we can just go through the what's new in FlutterFlow post. And talk about these things and explain them for those of you who don't know. I will make my screen nice and big. So I'm reading some of these for the first time, to be honest, because I haven't read this post. So custom auth via JWT tokens. Are you excited about that, David?
Sure.
This essentially means, is this an extra thing for Firebase, or is this if you're not using Firebase? Let's
It
we
says
do
that it also allows you to combine Firebase powerful features.
Yeah, so this is if you want.
Learn
So
more
a
things about that.
JWT is a JSON web token.
Yeah.
Firestore does use them. You can actually access it already if you look in the user authenticated user part. You can actually get your user's current token, but this is for people who are wanting to use a third-party auth provider. So that's kind of cool. This is a big one that I think a lot of people have been asking for: maps and data types. So in a nutshell, this is building and extending further. So recently, obviously, FlutterFlow in Firebase, you have your collections, which is a collection of documents, with a document being one thing. So one user, one address, one order, whatever it is. Sub collections was something that Firestore supports. It actually supports up to 100 layers deep. Meaning you can have one user document, and inside of that you can have a orders collection for that specific user, which makes querying things kind of easier. What now they have added is expanding this support in Firestore even more. I can show you an example actually that I happen to have to hand of what a data map is. So in a normal Firestore document, what you'll have is you've got your basic key value pairs. So this is what we're all used to in FlutterFlow. With bundles, with maps, what you're actually able to do is have essentially almost like a document within a field within a field. So this is the field items, and then it actually has a key value pairs. What would you say is the biggest use for this, David?
Yeah. So, well, I
Versus
think
normal
the example that they gave is pretty good. Concise address, for example. right? So essentially, if you take a look at the users collection, you'll have the primitive user types such as string or int, double, etc. But what this now will allow you to do also is inside the user account, you also have a user-defined definition called address. So, for example, so that would be that would be it. So we can actually just have our address object inside of that.
We'll go through it a little bit in a sec. So this would be the map data type if you're looking at it in Firestore. I'll show you the FlutterFlow interface in a second. But for instance, you could have things like rather than just having every 5 different fields for like first line address, second line address, you can essentially have it all as a bundle type. So this city, country has 5 different. So then you have 8 Fake Street, Springfield, Illinois. Spell Illinois correctly. And again, just like I was showing you before. So now that's all. I've actually not played around in terms of querying it, but I guess is this more about data preciseness, or is it actually about a better, more effective way to structure your data to access it?
I feel like coming from a relational database background, I would say that it's actually trying to mimic or emulate that as well. So it's more, in my opinion, for structuring your data, and also if it's well structured, then it's easier to query. So if you think about it, if you're just querying the address collection later on, you'll be able to filter on from by the user as well. So you can do it in reverse if you think about it like
We
that.
could actually maybe try that today because I haven't actually played around with how it actually works as a query.
Yeah.
But for instance, this is the Firebase FlutterFlow interface. Sorry. So obviously you have your normal collections here, and this is the sub collection as we're talking about. You now have this new tab called types. And what that's allowing you to do then is to actually set up almost like data models. So you're actually able to reuse these. So yeah, again, to make that same exact example here, you've got all your different, but as you'll see, you've now got this, you can even, I guess, nest data types within data types, like Russian nulls. And I mean, I guess for starters, for me, this is also just a time saver as long as I can query it easily. So, because I've now specified what an address has, and in my collection, if I wanted to now give a user an address rather than have to write those out, which especially if you reuse stuff across collections, you can actually now select that data type. You can call it either the same thing or something different, and you're just going to pick address, and then it's essentially adding in a few clicks. You're getting all of the properties that would be in there are now available within that document, which is pretty cool. I haven't tried using it yet, but maybe we'll get to that. So in my millions of tabs, if I can now find the one I was on, here we go. So that's data types. This one, okay, they did mention it. This was a super sneaky thing that they kind of snuck in there. You can now do biometric authentication, which is really cool. I set it up in one of my apps. I'm happy to go through that and show a live working demo example. But yeah, I'm not exactly sure how you're still having to do. I don't believe you can do biometric for it's not a first layer, so you're still having to sign up people with email password. But what it does mean is that then after that, you can set up action chain logic. And we will actually I'll go through the one I set up, the very simplistic one, which basically means that once your user has authenticated the very first time, they can opt into using biometrics. And then from then on would not have to type in their password. Though I feel like they should have to if they use a new device, right, David? Just for security.
Yeah, of course. So the biometrics is associated with the device, so it's per device.
Yeah. Command palette. I want to read what this one is. Command palette to help you move quickly.
So I think the command palette is trying to mimic like in Visual Studio, the IDE Visual Studio, you have a command palette, so you can just search for things quickly.
Oh, I see, because it's not just like actions now. Okay, I understand. It's like a universal search. Project autosave.
I like this one. the extra 5 minutes, and then you can also have a peek as well, so you can actually
That's
peek
really
into
cool. I
your
like that.
version before actually restoring to it.
That's really nice, that one. These are just design changes. Templates, all about box shadows. Simple search. I thought that was
Well, I
already.
haven't tried out the simple search yet, so I was wondering what they actually use in the back of that, if they're going to use some sort of like RX relative extensions or something like that at the
What
back.
do you mean by RX?
So like as you type, you can merge. So apologize, as the user types, it's used as events, or it's considered as events, and or a stream of events, and you can do a certain things such as throttle the event, wait for a user to actually stop typing before it actually does a search. I think there you are, 2000 milliseconds, which is 2 seconds, right? Go up slightly, up a bit more. There you are. By default, the page updates after 2000 milliseconds of the textual value change, but you can customize update delay.
Oh,
Yeah, so what you don't want to do is, let's say if you're connected to a database, an API, and you're searching or allowing the user to search, let's say, through all the users. You wouldn't do that, obviously, in non-normal circumstances, but let's say you did that and you had millions of users. You wouldn't want every time someone starts to type something for it to go off to the database and actually database. You would want the user to actually finish typing, and then for it to go off to the database or the API, and then pull back the data for you, or the filtered data. So
but from
your
my understanding, this is not the search results for simple search. I'm not 100% sure how this is different because this was already a feature they added a while ago. They even had documentation on it. I'm not sure if they're just including it because of this blog, but
not sure.
previously, at least, this was not live search. So it's an action based search. It's not, if you watch this GIF, I don't think it's going to see, it doesn't filter. Oh, no, it does.
It does filter. It does
Okay,
filter.
that's really cool.
So and I think that 2 seconds or 2000 milliseconds.
Yeah, no, because they already had to update. Because I have like we actually went through last week. I was showing some of those custom functions I did for doing this, but their one's way better because mine was very simplistic. So that's really cool. I
I
will
mean, I don't
definitely.
know how flexible it is the way that FlutterFlow has.
What do you mean?
Well, what would happen if you started typing in EAD as in reading and missed out the R, for instance?
It catches it.
Well, I don't know if it does. From
Well,
this,
no, it's the assuming it's using the action for simple search
right?
would catch. Let's say you wanted to type for Uber, right? UBER, and you typed UEBR. It will match that.
Yeah, but what about if you typed in BER then?
Yeah,
Would
it
it
will catch that.
match? But you just said you just spelled the whole word Uber as in UBER.
Oh,
What about
UEBR was what I was going for.
if you had a word which had instead of movie nights, for instance, right? The E had an accent on it, and you just spelled it with, and then when you typed it, you spelled it without an accent. Would it catch that?
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, in my mind, if it's able to catch completely misaligned letters, the matching algorithm or whatever it's using underneath, it must be using some package. We can dig into it. Has got more advanced logic because my one was very much a simplistic, looking for letters, right? So if you were spelling it wrong, it wasn't catching that. Whereas simple search does catch typos. The problem was that you had to launch it from an action. So this is really cool. I have to try this. So that's again another kind of big update.
Yeah, good.
And I've never used this feature and never got it to work, but maybe it works now. Schema validation. It's apparently supposed to make sure that you haven't screwed up your Firestore data. This is the biggest one that we are going to focus on today, which is related to what we were doing last week, which is the ability to pass actions.
Important note about this: it says without parameters.
Yeah. So right now you essentially have to set up a dedicated local state parameter, but we'll get into how that works and what it is, but it's pretty cool. On change when text is selected, ability to copy paste gradients. That's kind of cool. Variables. Okay. They just really like everything I hack together. They then go and just make properly and make me feel like I should have waited. Cool. So, all right. Shall we get started? what should we get started with first? Biometric, a little demo of that, or shall we dive straight into the custom widget stuff? What do you think?
Let's dive into the custom widget stuff.
All right, let's do it. Let's just go into a brand new dev project, and we will build this entire thing for you guys in case it's helpful for scratch, because I think this is kind of a, oh, it would really help if I didn't have 47 errors. I do not feel like fixing these. And I have no idea what they are. We will use my client app because that has no errors. I will use a fresh page in it though, it's fine. What did I have 47 errors for?
I'd like to see better debugging in FlutterFlow.
Wouldn't we all? At least there are errors now when you deploy. So when you deploy to the store. All right, while I clear up these 5 errors.
I'm always having to connect it to GitHub, download the code to my local machine, and then run it through Visual Studio to actually see why something's not running. Right?
Yeah.
And it's just, yeah. Especially when we're working with custom widgets and custom action, custom functions, things like that.
Well, yeah, I think I mean, I think if you're writing custom code, I don't think it makes sense necessarily to write it if you're experimenting with it, to be writing it in FlutterFlow.
No, but sometimes it's faster, right? If let's say you've done a custom widget in Visual Studio, right? For example, and then you imported that code in, copied and pasted that code into FlutterFlow. Then you said, "Oh no, I forgot a parameter or whatever." You go and edit that, and then suddenly everything falls over. You don't want to have to download everything and then copy and paste it back in, right? It's much easier just to open up FlutterFlow, go into the custom widget, and just edit it. Or actually know why something actually stopped working, right?
What would it take, do you think, for them to? I assume they're using some third-party tool or something, right? Sorry, I've got to clear these errors now. 5 ones of these.
I'm not sure what they're.
I don't know what they do, but I'm sure it's something else.
It's a parser. It's a parser, I suppose. So most of the problems is going to be a syntax error, right? Mm-hmm. Or even when we try to build and we get an error, I think they could bubble up that error or offer the actual, for developers anyways, offer the actual error that's bubbling up into a new console window, whatever, right? So like here, there could be an option to actually show the real error, for example.
All right.
The CLI.
This is how dedicated I am to FlutterFlow Live. I'm just killing whatever these are just to get them going. I will redo them later, whatever they are. 2 more, and then we'll get started. So we will start not with a custom widget. What we're going to actually start with today, I think, is a component. And what would be a good one to do? Maybe like a just basic filter type thing. Actually, I know what we'll start with. We'll start with a very basic button. That's what we will do. Something very boring, but also very useful. Give me 2 seconds. Whatever these are, I hope they're not important. Cool. And now that will compile. Great. So while that compiles in the background, I will start up a Refresh page, and we will show you the basics of what the passing actions can do for you and your project, because I think it can be a big time saver.
So if there's any programmers out there or developers watching this later on, this is essentially delegates. This is what passing a function is.
What's a delegate, David?
It's when you pass a function. That's what a delegate is, essentially a pipeline.
Jesus Christ. I might have to get you to share. I might have to teach you how to do this because my computer is dying right now. I'll try one more time. Here we go. Okay. Live demo. Cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with a blank page. If it ever fucking feeds. Apologies, mother. I'm getting in trouble for that one. Good thing she doesn't watch this. Okay, cool. So The most basic use case that I can possibly think of, but one that actually was one I found very weird when I first encountered it, is you may have in your app a beautifully, absolutely beautifully designed button that you've got. And you essentially want to make sure that you are using the same exact button everywhere in your app, which is what a little bit of padding, a little bit of padding. But anyway, let's say this is our button. It's perfectly designed. It's how we want it, and what we think we're going to do. We would normally assign actions to it, etc. But we want to reuse it, so we're going to make this component, right? And we're going to call it. It's our standard. It's our standard button that we want. So here we're going to convert this to. I'm going to call it main button. Yeah, this is the one we want to use. Just across our app, we want to use it as a component again and again and again, so that it is always consistent. And let me just enter this here. Cool. The problem that you would run into is that you will realize, okay, great. Well, I've got this button, but it doesn't always do the same thing. Sometimes it does one thing, sometimes it does another. Sometimes it's going to be navigating to even just a basic navigate. Sometimes I want it to navigate to this page, other times I want it to navigate to the other page. But it's a component, so it always does the same thing. With the new passing through actions, what you can actually do is set a parameter here. And in your parameters, where you would normally specify, like, for instance, the text on the button that you want to pass through, so that you can customize it and use it in multiple different places, you can now set your button action. And you can actually set, so we got the data types we talked about earlier, but you actually got this action here. So we're going to set that as a parameter. And then what we can do here, when we come outside of the page and actually looking back into this component, is we can actually, just like for any other parameter, we're going to see it pop up here. And we're actually going to be able to...
That's new, right? The action editor.
Pardon?
That is new, the action editor.
Yeah, so the action editor, this is the same action editor as you would have normally. The difference is you're seeing here it's saying callback. So what you're doing here is you're setting the action that you want actually outside of your component. And then you can set any normal actions, whatever you would normally do. And then back inside the component, what you're actually going to do is, rather than do the, the action, what you're going to do is you're actually going to then call that action. So if I look here, this is the awkward moment if I execute callback. So what this is doing, in simplistic terms, is it is going to be executing that outside action inside, which means you can now use one component, but have it actually have different buttons, which is obviously makes components a lot more flexible. And here, execute callback, you're going to choose this. Now, for the fun of it, and now that means while I, let me actually put to prove that it works. Let me just set up so I can actually navigate to this page from somewhere. Pick this random button. And then we'll double check that works. And then let's actually dive into the code, and maybe you can walk it through it in the most basic example, David. How this is actually working. And again, I know you're going to want to talk about some of the limitations of this that you already kind of mentioned. Let me just really quick find this. This would be a good day for me to try the universal command palette. Might be quicker. What did I call that page? Live. Okay, so I'm going to set this to build so that we can have a play with it. And while it's building in the background, very, very slowly probably. It's not FlutterFlow, no. Let's go back to that page, and I want you to explain to me mostly what exactly is going on here in this code, and yeah, what are the kind of, how far can this go? How far can we push this? And then where is it? How far will it take us, I guess? So let's pull up that code for this page. Go time, David.
Yeah, so obviously,
generating the code, that's not a good sign.
yeah, I think it's just building. So I was worried that it's going to do that. So we need to, there you
It shouldn't. The code should generate in real time.
Doesn't seem like it's done it.
What's wrong with my? Maybe then my demo won't even work.
No, it will.
I mean, the callback. I did explain that, right? No, like it's. I'm not stupid, no.
I think it might be easier to see it in code, anyways, at least for me. So
Okay.
and essentially, delegate as a pointer. It just points to a function. And this is essentially what we're doing. We're just pointing to a function, or this in this instance, an action.
Okay, let's go to the here's one I prepared earlier backup option then, which would be not here. It's order status. I'm so blind. So results.
Do a search.
Oh, there we go. In the command palette, wherever that is.
Yeah, I think it's.
I think it's just. Unfortunately, I don't think the search will help because I probably called it something really stupid. Okay, fine. Orders. That's not going to help because that is my choice. Wallet, search results, home, chat page, search results, copy. I don't know how much page it is. App bar search. Unless my page got deleted, let's find it. I don't understand why the example I did wouldn't work exactly the same.
Has it built yet?
It's going. Nothing's going fast. If this keeps going, though, we'll just switch. I'm going to ask you to switch to yours if that's okay.
Sure.
Here's the page I was looking for. It's called test. Okay, so this is one that I know for sure works. So, and it's a much better use case than just the simple button.
Yeah.
So what we have here is the thing I said we weren't going to look at. This is actually a custom widget. It's a filter bar. Kind of works exactly like choice chips. This is what we were looking at, I think, last week. The idea being that each of these orders in this list view has a status, which is a string value. These correspond to those string values. You can filter through it. This is what we were not able to do last week. This, however, has a, we're passing through this action. This action is to update local state. So now I will finally, without further ado, let's get into some code. I'm glad I didn't waste too long trying to pass a variable through if it can't do it.
Yeah.
So here we go.
Yeah. Okay.
So
scroll down
from top to bottom, if we just walk people, can you, if possible? So this, just to remind me, a basic FlutterFlow page layout for anyone who's watching.
Sure. Just make your code a little bit larger for everyone because
yeah,
the resolution is pretty bad.
Is that better? This black screen. My God.
It's just taking a bit of time.
It's just, I've got too many things. Is that better? Can you see that better now?
Oh, yeah. Oh, dear. Okay, so we have a stateful widget there.
So at the top of the page is where all the like controllers and stuff get declared, right?
Cool. Yeah. So we have a test widget or test TTTTT widget, right? And it extends a stateful widget. That means we have, don't click anywhere else. Stop clicking. Then it means that we have the ability to override what we call a create state, right? So we have a state. So if you take a look at line 20 now, we can see that we have a class called state that we're extending, right? And yeah, and the class is actually called underscore test widget state, right?
And the underscore you're telling me is just like standard notation, right?
I believe it's a standard notation
for the way
to Dart, right? In Dart there now, in different languages, I come from a .NET background, so like in C# we have a different style formality, right?
Mhm.
But whatever works for whatever, you know. And there's Camel casing, Pascal casing. It's all different for
Mhm.
each language, and there's no real formality. Well, it's just a standard that everyone keeps to, but there's nothing wrong with if you decide to actually not use the underscore, then that's your decision, right? But it just means that probably that if you're going to show your code or want to work in a team with other people, then
Mhm.
everyone's going to look at your code and just not understand, essentially, right? It's like, well, I understand, well, it works, understand it, but they get confused. It's kind of like gaslighting. Anyways, right. So the stateful widget, or the state here, we initialize the state, essentially, right? And this is actually executed on the first time that this widget actually gets created. Yeah,
Mhm.
and not one time, right? So it doesn't get ever created, doesn't ever get run again. In its state, initialize state, right? So we're just initializing the state of these, right? So schedule bindings dot insert, so line 28, for example, right? Async set state 29. We're actually setting the state of these, or FFApp state, to dot current page to orders string, and FFApp state dot slider visible to all, right? And again, this is just run one time now. The super dot init state, line 26, just means super, which is the one above the class above, right? And that's it. It just runs init state on that as well,
And
right?
these are my actions on page load, by the way, just to be very clear.
Yeah, so this is just run one time only, right? So it's got
Mhm.
it will just initializing the state of these local state, right? So the FFApp state is Flutter's flow implementation of local state, essentially, right?
And then this one here is for my, obviously, my search, my text field, which is being also initialized at the top of the page, right?
Yeah, so you're creating an instance of text editing controller, right?
Mhm.
So yes, that controller, I believe, will allow you to watch for
Yeah,
what
it's the
changes in text boxes,
update on
right?
refresh, right?
Yeah, so you don't actually have to have it there. You can actually have it in on line 38 or just above line
Really?
line 37 and 38. Yeah, you don't have to initialize it right there, but it's okay. You got it there, so it's fine.
I didn't do it. FlutterFlow did it, but yeah.
Fine. Either one would have worked, right?
Okay.
Because it just needs to be run one time, essentially. And yeah, okay, cool. So what we're doing is we're returning a scaffold on line 38, and obviously widgets inside of a widget inside of a widget, right? So we're navigating to this page. Go up slightly. Just so we body gesture detector. Okay, so we have a gesture detector on the body of this. Okay, on tap, focus scope. So focus scope of context, unfocus. Okay.
I don't have an
We're
answer for you.
unfocused.
But
I'm not too sure. I'm just reading this, but it just says that we're unfocusing when we tap on it. That's my understanding of it. Anyways,
oh no, that is, I know what this is. This is the option in FlutterFlow for to dismiss keyboard.
right. Okay.
So you can set that up at the scaffold level to, so it means if you click anywhere, the keyboard will dismiss.
Okay, that's pretty cool. Nice. So double going down line 44,
Yeah.
45. In the
Don't think
container, we have infinity, then
this
chance
is all
stack,
just layout crap.
and just all layout stuff. I don't think we need to cover any of that. So let's go
This
to
is
the
quite interesting, or potentially, is that this is how it actually calculates how wide your screen is. If you're looking to do 90, this is essentially a 90% container. So
yeah,
what this is the media query of context, if you ever see that, of size width, is essentially saying, look to this and then
yeah.
calculate your size on the basis of that.
So is media query a part of Flutter, or is that Flutter
Yeah,
Flow?
yeah, that's a Dart Flutter thing.
Oh, okay, that's pretty cool. So that's a help utility. That's pretty cool. Like that.
Hello, little one. Sorry, my
Okay,
cat got trapped
that's
outside.
fine. Okay, so let's going down. Main
Yeah,
access.
and let's
Okay,
get to the good
child
stuff.
expanded. Where's the? I don't see the
So,
widget. The advanced.
it is going to
Which one
be
are you using the?
rejected. So that's my Firestore query right here on the list view. My
Okay,
custom widget
above it.
will be here. This must be my custom widget. Wherein functions order status, orders record. No, that's all.
Oh,
That's
that's just
the
builder,
query,
no?
alignment direction.
Oh, we can
It
try
says
that.
quicksand, FlutterFlow icon button. In my search orders.
You see in Visual Studio, you have a tree explorer, tree
Well,
view.
we're
You
not
just,
in Visual Studio.
oh, I know.
Uh, So where function, in function, order state. So this is all my query. It must be above that logically. It must be
Yeah.
somewhere in here.
Could you
Custom. Here we go. Custom widgets. It's one little line right there.
tab bar now? Tab bar now. Okay, so this is your tab bar now. Okay, cool.
This
All
is
right.
this here. Yeah, tab bar new.
New. Okay, I apologize. Can't read it from here. Okay, so tab bar new. So what's cool about this? Oh no, don't click
I was
away.
making it bigger for you. You said you couldn't see.
Okay, it's just gone. Now. Okay.
Like an old married couple.
The important thing about this is that before we didn't have this. Where do you call it?
Right.
There you are. The new update state. We didn't have that before. We didn't have that option. Essentially, whenever you want that little new thing that you have on the right hand side of FlutterFlow, right? That creates this, right? And now you can actually see we have an async set state. So now set state essentially says or tells the builder or the context to actually just build that widget game, because everything is immutable unless it is mutable. And it tells FlutterFlow or Dart, whatever, to rebuild that part of the screen again, or rebuild
so
that widget.
this action will happen inside of is essentially an action that you would have in your custom widget or your component, right?
Yeah.
But then you're forcing it to happen on the outside is the simplistic explanation, no?
Well, what you're doing, okay, so line 81 and 82, right? Okay, so line 81 and 82, all you're doing is just setting the slider visible from a true or false, right? From the opposite, essentially, right?
No, so these are actually these are all string values. So essentially what I did is on the inside of my custom widget, and we can go to that code in a second. In the inside of the custom widget, I set slider active. On the outside, I set slider visible. This is actually unnecessary. I could be doing this all with one local state variable, but essentially because you cannot pass variables, you have to use a local state variable, at least to me it seems like, on both the inside and outside.
Right. Well, line 81 and 82, it should be just one line, right? Because you're setting slider. Oh no, hold on a second. Slider visible is equal to slider active or slider not active. Right? You're just flipping it around essentially.
No, they're both string values. So it's taking whatever string value. So if it's pending, slider active will be pending. And then this on the callback, slider visible will change to pending as well. Let's look at it.
I'm reading it here. It says ffAppState dot whatever equals to the opposite of whatever that active app state is.
Opposite. It should be. Let me go find it again. Why would it? Then I must have messed opposite of. You mean it had an exclamation mark, yeah?
At the end, yes.
Okay, now I understand what you're talking about. Where did it go? Here we go.
Okay, so read it, line 81 and 82. Line 81, don't worry about the FFApp state.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
But what you're saying is slider visible is equal to the opposite of slider active. For me, I would use an exclamation mark like that when I'm dealing with Boolean values. Now you're telling me you're telling me slider active.
Yeah, I mean, that makes no sense. I don't actually remember that is, but it works. So I can't say that it doesn't work. I don't know if that's, if you were doing no, it's not equal. You're right. Anyway, let's have a look at the custom widget. Maybe it'll make more sense. Maybe Joss screwed up somewhere. So this is my function that I'm passing in, right? So it's a parameter in the top of the widget. This is the custom widget, yeah?
Yeah.
So this is what we've done. The parameter that you have to set on the inside, just like with the component we were showing earlier.
Yeah.
You set.
So the new updates, the new update state thingy, right? You should be able to do a dot whatever after that and call, essentially use that as a pointer to the function that you're passing in, and then call whatever method that you want.
So which is then here. So essentially we do, this is not the new stuff. This is all just the custom widget. Then I do this slider active equals to set it to whatever it's changed to.
And then there you are, line 104.
It's important, right?
Widget.newUpdateState.call. So you're invoking that function.
And does
And
it
that's
matter whether this goes inside of the set state or outside? Does it make any difference?
no, because I don't know, because the set state was actually on the outside already on the other part.
Mm-hmm. So essentially, what I'm doing here is I'm just forcing it to run. Well, it does work. I know that. I don't know what the. Well, let's see if our other one that we ran, if it did actually build, or if I managed to break it already. I need fewer run modes. Look, you got some error messages, David.
Thank you.
So
Yeah.
why can I not do the thing that makes sense? It's kind of what I was expecting because the code failed to generate, but I don't understand what the difference is. Why my simple explanation that we were starting with to be the most simplistic one does not work. Why would it be that you couldn't execute a callback? So
Well,
here,
can we take a look at the code now on that?
well, we won't be able to because it won't generate. It's a
Okay.
fatal flaw.
Really?
This is where you need error messages. Like if I try to look at this code, it won't load for sure, or almost for sure. Like it will just fail for this whole page
It's weird.
because I broke it. Okay, well, let's find out which part broke it. I'm
Well, that's
guessing.
very interesting because that I would have assumed that would have worked.
Wait, so let's. So this is the one I defined on the outside, which should just be a navigate. On the inside, I defined it as a execute. I don't understand what's wrong about that. Worst teacher ever. But let's see if this now. Is the code still broken? No. So now the code is no longer broken
Oh, okay.
because I removed the action on the inside. But that was the important part. So why would
So on child, okay.
on press print button pressed? But it's not doing anything, obviously.
Yeah. Well, yeah. This is.
And this won't on button press print.
Yeah.
I wonder if it was because it was a navigate.
Possibly.
So I'm passing through my actions. So on the inside, I should only have this callback thing, right?
Yeah,
So,
just update local state then or something, whatever.
okay. Uh, let's do it piece by piece. So first, let's try to put something, yeah, like a update local state. Let's see. Sure. Let's set that to slider visible set value. Sure, why not? Set value to live test. Okay, so this is on the inside. And now let's do it piece by piece. Has this broken it or not? So no matter what action I set on the inside is breaking. This makes no sense to me.
Has something broken or has something changed since?
Because we did one of these together, right? For
Yeah, we
sure.
did. Mhm.
And it worked fine. You good. Okay, so right now I have an action on the inside and it's working fine, yeah? So this, my component has an action button, main button widget, but async. Okay. But that wasn't the action I set. The action I set was this. So let's try and change this to callback. So much for explaining to people how easy this is to do. my God. Execute callback. I give up scrolling. I'm going to type callback. Okay. I go to the code. Okay. Now what do we have here? So we have main button widget. It has just no action. And if I look at this itself, that's really bizarre. Oh, you know what though? I'm not actually looking at the, when I click on it like that, I'm not actually looking at the component, am I? Let's have a look at the component. What was the example we did when it actually worked? Okay, so this
I think it was in another project that now you've deleted.
is probably built on action async. Oh, well, that's probably why. So on callback, navigate to. Okay, let's try something that's not a navigate then, I guess, right? So on outside, let's say local state, select field to update, first run, and then set value, specific value, true. Okay. Voila.
Looks more promising.
So I think it was the navigate thing it didn't like.
Interesting.
So this is what we expect. Yeah. So this is what we've passed into it. And then on the inside, we'll see that execute callback thing again, just like on our custom widget.
Yep. Yeah.
So that's here. And we see, built on action.
Await.
Yeah.
It's on action.call. So that question mark, just make sure that if it's null, then we don't call the call method.
But I have no idea. Okay. And we'll do one final test and then we'll move on to something else. To see whether this can. I think I did something stupid and we didn't realize. I think I set like a navigate on the inside or something. This is on autopilot. Okay, so I've set my navigate on the outside. I've got my callback on the inside. And I do view code and it breaks. I guess, okay, people, you cannot do a callback with a navigate, but that's not exactly what you would want to do anyway, but that's interesting. I wonder, and it is only the...
That is interesting though, because would there be any use cases for when you would want a button to navigate to different?
Well, if I wanted to use one of the buttons for custom action officials, execute callback, and I can't just execute that arbitrarily, right? No. So the only thing you can do is the callback, essentially. I'm wondering if maybe it has something to do with the fact that where it's like when you do navigate, it's like push, remove until, or something like that. I wonder if that's the weird thing. But that's interesting. No, I mean that isn't the major use case for sure.
No.
It wasn't the problem we had before, but it's just interesting that there are clearly limitations. Right? That's what we've learned. Okay.
From the code, we can see that what we're doing is we're actually calling that function.
Yeah.
Essentially.
That
So
definitely doesn't work. So don't try with navigate, people. That's the moral of the story. All right. What was the other thing we said we would talk about
you
in?
said you wanted to try biometrics, but
Oh
we
yeah.
only have 7 minutes.
Well, I can
So,
show you how mine. That's already set up. So
all
we can
right.
show how that's working. Because that's actually kind of interesting with the business logic of it. I feel like we've got zero accomplished in this last few minutes. Um, Pop on in here. Sure. I will show you our login page, which up until now had a placeholder for um, the biometrics one. So now it's actually nice to have it. Essentially, when you're using the biometric authentication, what you get is I haven't been able to film it because it doesn't let you film because it's secure, at least on Android. But essentially, you're getting a true false result that you need to handle with a conditional action. So if we go here to our authentication auth version 2. So in what this ends up being is it's a grid I'm using to display a pin pad. The I can actually I can try and demo this, but I think it's more interesting than watching it happen. Uh, Also, it wouldn't work on my computer anyway, would it? So the important part here is the actions that are happening on that button. So in my little grid view that's all hacked together, I've got uh, this combined action flow, which handles obviously whether there are three types of buttons. You've got your basic one to your numeric buttons, and then you've got your biometric one, and then you've got a delete button that clears everything. So this is my little action flow. The first thing it's doing is essentially finding out which what type of button has been pressed, whether it's a number button or whether it's icon auth is the placeholder in the generate children from list, which means it's the biometric button. So if the biometric button has been pushed, what you get is the biometric authentication action. You also get a reason for which apparently is important for getting approved in the store, and you get an output action output. This part's obviously important. You can then run your condition just like you would with validating a form to make sure that a user had submitted it. You have just simple Boolean true false. So you need to handle both conditions. If true, it means obviously they have passed the biometrics according to whatever's stored on their phone. You can show them a success snack bar. You can, I clear up some stuff here. And then I mark them, they're all status to verified, and then I navigate them on their way, depending if they're a registered user or not. If not, what happens is I'm handling that with a different snack bar, and it essentially terminates here. So then they would just be right back where they started. So they have not been able to enter the app using biometrics. The other check, I guess, that I don't have here that I should have is that, well, no, because at this point they have done Firebase authentication. So I'm not sure. You should, yeah, this shouldn't work if they're not authenticated into the app, right? Because it just doesn't make sense. They need to authenticate some other way and then essentially activate biometric. And if they do so, you would run the biometric authentication, I guess, to verify that the person's activating it is the person who's right there able to authorize it. Or why you would want to activate it if you weren't that person, I don't know. So yeah, that one was easy. And then that's obviously if it's just not. But it's a pretty cool feature. It's pretty slick. I mean, it's mostly just using the built-in stuff. So, do you have any final thoughts, David, or should we call this sad, very slow, very jerky, for which I apologize, live
No,
stream today?
it's good. We went through a few things that I'm very happy about. So it's good.
If anyone has any questions or knows why the navigate doesn't work, please do tell me because I'm curious. And join us next week. I may post up some code examples if I remember of some of the stuff that's actually working in case you want to try it. Or yeah, have a nice rest of your day.